Today we have Chief Lanzas, who is a friend of GUSD, a partner on every different initiative we've had, a role model for our entire community, and such a pleasure to have. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this wonderful webinar.
Anytime, Dr. Ekchan. You're such a support and a fan of Adelante and our Latinx students that we love having you at everything. So thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I want to begin by just thanking all of our speakers and specifically Chief Lanzas. I was explaining to him before you all came in that my dad is a retired fireman in Ohio, and so there is a special place in my heart for firemen and fire chiefs, and I'm very excited that he is here with us tonight, so thank you to him. I also want to thank those people who introduced us to our speakers: Beatriz Bautista, Ivan Quinones, Anita Quinones Gabrielian, Jenny Quinones Skinner. I'd like to thank Mr. Gallimore for running the webinars and knowing all the back ends of Zoom that I don't know, as well as GUSD for providing us with the interpreters and just being an overall huge supporter of Hispanic Heritage Month and our speaker series. I'd also like to thank Glendale Public Libraries for partnering with us throughout this series, Glendale Latino Association, which is a huge partner and a huge plus for us. We love hanging out with them and supporting one another. And of course, to our group, Adelante Latinos. And if you are interested in getting more information, please feel free to contact me directly, or we have a bunch of social media sites that I'll share with you in just a minute. We also have our student moderators. And tonight we're lucky to have Sydney Escobar with us. She's going to be moderating with Chief Lanzas. And here's our social media. We have email, we have websites, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have YouTube. We've got it all. Pick your favorite social media and please like us, follow us, so you can get all the information you need as we are sending it out. Okay, and then these are the recordings from our previous presenters. And I had to miss Monday, and so I'm so sorry that I wasn't here for Dr. Pantoja, but I am anxious to watch her video, so I can't wait to do that. And it's great that we have our own YouTube channel and that these are there for eternity as long as YouTube exists. And so if you aren't able to watch tonight, you can always pull them up on YouTube and watch them later. And the series continues. After tonight, next week we have Roberto Alvarez and Roberto Negrete, and then Dean Flores. I think I'm reading that name right. Sorry, my vision's not great. And so we are thrilled to have all of them join us in the next week and a half. Our Adelante Latino Strategic Planning meeting, our next one is November 3rd from 6 to 8 via Zoom. So if you are, like I said, if you're interested in all and you want to help us find ways to best support our Latinx students in GUSD, please join us. We 2 heads are better than 1 and 45 heads are better than 40. So we would love to have you. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sydney Escobar and have a wonderful time.
Okay, so Silvio Lanzas. Fire Chief Silvio Lanzas started his career in the fire service on his 14th birthday as fire explorer at the Grand Terrence Fire Station in San Bernardino. Silvio was hired by CAL FIRE when he was 18 and spent 22 years of his career with CAL FIRE in the San Bernardino and Riverside units. He has held every rank in the CAL FIRE system, beginning as Firefighter 1 and promoting to Firefighter 2, Engineer, Captain, Battalion Chief, and eventually Division Chief. Silvio spent 10 of his years with CAL FIRE working in their largest contract city, the city of Moreno Valley. He was assigned to Moreno Valley as an engineer, captain, and battalion chief. In 2014, he promoted to Operations Division Chief in the Northwest Division of the Riverside Unit. Silvio served as the fire chief's contact for the cities of Norco, Eastvale, Europa Valley, and Rubidoux Community Service District. He oversaw the Norco Conservation Camp as part of his division chief assignment. Silvio has worked on engine and truck companies and in special assignments throughout his career. He has been a member of the California's Urban Search and Rescue Team for 15 years and has held positions as plans manager, rescue specialist, and rescue squad officer. Silvio was the Riverside Unit's technical research coordinator and US&R coordinator. Silvio is accredited through the Center for Public Safety Excellence as a chief fire officer. He holds a bachelor degree in fire science and 2 associate degrees. He is a California State Certified Chief Officer and Fire Officer. Silvio has also been a member of CAL FIRE's incident management teams for 10 years. He has held positions as Type 1 Operations Branch Director and Type 1 Operations Section Chief. Silvio is a qualified Air Tactical Group Supervisor. In December of 2017, Silvio accepted a position as a Deputy Fire Chief with the City of Glendale Fire Department. He oversaw the operations, EMS, and administrative sections of the department and the Verdugo Fire Communications Section, which dispatches for 13 agencies across Los Angeles County. He was appointed as the interim fire chief on December 1st, 2018, and formally as the fire chief of Glendale Fire Department on February 5th, 2019. He is active throughout the community and serves on several boards and committees. He is a board member on the Glendale Memorial Hospital Board, a member of the YMCA Glendale Board, a member of the Glendale Sunrise Rotary Club. He is the president of the Foothill Fire Chiefs Association and the second vice president of the Los Angeles Area Fire Chiefs Association. He is the Cal Chiefs Area 2 South Director. He also serves as the Los Angeles Region 1 Area C Operational Coordinator and is a member of the California State Firefighters Association Leadership, Equity, Diversity, and Service Committee, as well as a member of the Glendale Latino Association. Silvio has been married to his wife, Cara, for 22 years. They have 2 boys, Isaiah and Jacob.
Good evening, everybody, or shall I say buenas tardes. Sydney, thank you so much for that introduction. It is my absolute pleasure and an honor to be with all of you today. I hope that my presentation inspires some of you and maybe even recruits some of you into the fire service. I'd like to start before I jump into my presentation by just saying that I'm an extremely proud Hispanic American. I credit much of my success and my eventual landing here at this beautiful and amazing city as the fire chief to being a Hispanic American. I'll get into some of the specifics of my background and my upbringing, and thanks to that wonderful bio, there's some things that I'll be able to skip over because some of those things I was going to touch on, so that's wonderful. That'll help hopefully give us a little bit more question and answers. But I often tell our new employees and recruits and people that I speak to that I humbly serve as the fire chief, and I credit the reason for being the leader of this organization with my work ethic. I think as a Hispanic American, we have not an obligation, but we have a history of being hard workers. And throughout my career, that is what's guided me, what's helped me achieve much of my success is being a hard worker. I refuse to be outworked. I'm oftentimes the first one into the office and many times the last one home. And that's how I like it. And that's how I've worked my entire life. I thank my parents for giving me that, and my Latin heritage, my Hispanic heritage for much of that. So I would like to start sharing my screen here, and we're going to jump into a presentation that I put together that I hope you all enjoy. We'll have some opportunities at the end for some question and answers. And with that, can I get somebody to tell me that we can see the screen, please?
You're good, Chief. Looks great.
Thank you. Thank you. So this first initial screen is one that I use for many of the presentations that I put together in different settings. And what it is a collage of many of the people and events in my life that help me draw inspiration. I won't go through every picture, but as you could tell, there's my beautiful families there. In several of the pictures, my two boys that were mentioned in the bio. On the left side, I'm an Angel and a Cowboy fan, so you could see that. I draw inspiration from sports many of the times. The chief officer on the left side that you see pictured with me, his name is Tony Meacham. He's the San Diego County Fire Chief. And in the lower left-hand corner, that is my previous boss, Fire Chief, now retired, of CAL FIRE Riverside. His name is John Hawkins, another individual that truly is a workhorse. He retired at 72 years old and outworked most of the people, if not everybody, in the organization. Some of the other things that are on here are some of the not fun stuff that I've been a part of. I've unfortunately been part of several line of duty funerals. The two individuals that you see pictured just next to my little son that's holding the airsoft gun are two LA County firefighters that were killed in line of duty just above us here in Glendale on the station fire. I was on that fire that night when those two individuals lost their life, and I draw inspiration from their courage, what they were trying to do when they lost that life. So several of the other pictures are just other people that are mentors, leaders, and people that have inspired me throughout my life. What we will cover today, we're going to cover a little bit about my background, my career, my experience. We're going to cover a little bit about the Glendale Fire Department. We're going to cover a few brief comments about my view on leadership and my role as the fire chief, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. I'd like to start with a bit of inspiration. I love this passage, and I read it most mornings, and I believe it to be true, especially in leadership. A great attitude becomes a great mood, which becomes a great day, which becomes a great year, which becomes a great life. And I truly think that that's true. A lot of what we face, both in leadership and in our everyday lives as students and as individuals, has a lot to do with our attitude and how we perceive it. So the beginning. I was born in Managua, Nicaragua in 1978. I'm the middle of three boys. We migrated to the United States when I was 2 years old, largely fleeing a civil war that was going on in Nicaragua at the time. Sadly, I must say that things today, 43 years later, are not much better in Nicaragua. There is still largely what many would consider a civil war, and a lot of really poor managed government and oppressed people, and really just poor living conditions for many of my Nicaraguan friends. My father was a crop dusting pilot and eventually a bus driver following an airplane accident in the crop dusting airplane that he flew. My mother was a stay-at-home mom until my mother and father divorced in 1990 when I was 12 years old. And I highlight that because 1990 becomes an important year for me later on in the presentation. My family and my hobbies. So here's again a picture of my family in the middle. That's a picture I think a year and a half or 2 years ago. My beautiful wife down on the bottom left, and my two boys on the right. Jacob the youngest, he's 11 years old, and Isaiah on the oldest, 23 years old. Isaiah is a firefighter also. He currently works for CAL FIRE, where I started, in Hemet. He flies on a helicopter as a firefighter, and I couldn't be more proud of him. Jacob is currently a fifth grader and an avid wrestler and grappler, and just a very great boy. He loves to airsoft and do anything fun. He's just a really fun young boy. My hobbies, I love to work out. I like to play golf, and really I like all sports, but as I mentioned previously, I'm an Angel fan, a Cowboy fan, and a Laker fan. As I mentioned, 1990 was an important year. My parents divorced in 1990, and later that year I was a junior high student at Grand Terrace Junior High School. in San Bernardino County. I was somewhat what I would describe as adrift. I didn't really know how to cope with divorce and how things were going to be normal. As I mentioned, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so there were a lot of responsibilities that fell on us three boys. And after school, I was fortunate that the school that I went, the junior high school that I attended, was about a block away from the Grand Terrace Fire Station. And many days after I got out of school, instead of walking home, I would walk to the liquor store, get a soda or some candy or whatever, and I would walk by the fire station. And the fire station sat back kind of at the back of a cul-de-sac, so it wasn't right on the street, but I always looked at the fire station, and ever since I was a little boy, as far as I could remember, I wanted to be a firefighter. So one day I gained the courage in 1990. I was 12 and a half or so years old, and I walked to the fire station. I saw the firefighters were out front washing the fire engine. And I walked to the fire station, and one of the firefighters, his name was Rolando Rivas, was on duty and welcomed me into, the apparatus bay and asked a little bit about me, what I was doing. And I, started talking to him, started becoming a friend, and that went on for a couple of weeks. I would get out of school and walk to the station and just talk to him. And then he knew how old I was. I was 12 and a half, as I mentioned, and he mentioned that they had an Explorer program, Fire Explorer program. But unfortunately, the Explorer program didn't allow you to join until you were 14. So, I asked him, is there any way that could be adjusted and that you could let me become an Explorer sooner? And he asked the captain at the time, and just because of the program is run through the Boy Scouts of America, they have some rules, it wasn't allowed. But he told me, hey, you don't have to be an Explorer. You could come by the fire station whenever you want, and we'll allow you to help us and help us wash the fire truck or do whatever needed to be done around the station. So literally from about 12 and a half years old, I would go to the fire station every single day when I got off of school. They gave me room in a back room to do my homework. I would do my homework, and then I would spend the next few hours helping them. I would wash the engine. I would help them cook, which I'm not a very good cook, but I would help them with dinner and with other chores, evening chores at the station, cleaning, taking the trash out. I wasn't allowed to go to calls or do any of those things, but I became kind of a kid that hung around the fire station. And all the crews started to know me and get to know me, and they knew that I was waiting to turn 14 years old. So for the next year and a half, I would do that. I would go to the station every day. I would go there on weekends. I would go there pretty much every single day and hang out with the firefighters. Once I turned 14 years old in 1992, on my birthday, I already had my application filled out, and they had a spot waiting for me. So on my 14th birthday, I was officially welcomed as a fire explorer. I was allowed to get a uniform. I was issued gear and began truly my career as a fire explorer. I was fortunate for the next 4 years, from age 14 to age 18, to learn and spend time along some of the best firefighters in the world. These individuals were not only mentors, leaders, they were truly role models. And I wasn't the only person that came out of that program that has risen to success in the fire service. There are literally many of my friends today we started in Grand Terrace as either explorers or paid call firefighters. And that group of firefighters that were there during those times were incredible. They allowed me to get my training. I was EMT trained before I was 18 years old. I had many certifications through going through classes throughout that 4-year period. I rose to the rank of Fire Explorer Captain, so I was in charge of all the fire explorers. And I gained a lot of experience. Once I had been there for a year, they allowed me to go to calls. I was able to help out in emergencies and truly learn what a firefighter does and how the work is required to be a firefighter. The reason this is important is that I'm extremely proud to say that we are starting a Fire Explorer program here in Glendale. We used to have one many years ago. Due to some budget restraints, it was taken away, and I am bringing it back effective January of 2022. We will be starting our program, and we will be looking for people in our community, much like I was, to join our Explorer program and learn how to become a firefighter. My career, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because a lot of this was already covered, but I was hired at 18 years old, 2 days before I graduated high school. I have a total, including my fire service time, my Explorer time, I have a total of 29 years in the fire department, 25 of those paid years. I spent 22 years in CAL FIRE. I've been here coming on 4 years. In 2 months, it'll be 4 years, and 3 years as the chief. As was mentioned, I've held every rank in the fire service. The ranks that were mentioned before in the bio, and then coming here as a deputy chief and now the fire chief. I've been extremely fortunate in my career, and much to the I've just been extremely fortunate that I've always been an individual that has raised my hand and has volunteered for every opportunity that is presented. And that allowed me to get some of the qualifications that I hold today, two that are extremely difficult to get, and many people spend truly an entire 30-year career trying to attain them, are the Operations Section Chief Type 1, which is, to put it more simply, that is the highest ranking individual on these major fires. When you hear of these fires that burn through communities and burn hundreds and thousands of homes and communities, and many are across multiple counties, the Operations Section Chief is the person who's ultimately in charge with how that fire is going to be put out, where you're going to put the aircraft, where you're going to put the resources, where you're going to stop the fire. Everything is basically under a Type 1 Operations Section Chief. When those fires become so big and complex, they call in an incident management team, which I was on for 10 years and rose to that rank. It is extremely difficult to get, and something that I am very, very proud to have. It's a qualification you never lose, and one that I can't emphasize enough how proud I am of that. The next one is probably the most difficult in the CAL FIRE system to become qualified in, and that's the Air Tactical Group Supervisor. If you go back to if you remember back on the first screen, there was on the top of the collage of pictures, there was a small airplane that is the CAL FIRE Air Attack airplane, where me as an Air Tactical Group Supervisor and a pilot fly in that airplane and direct all of the aircraft on those large fires. The qualification is, again, very difficult. It is the most costly. It's about $300,000 per employee to get somebody through that training, because of the amount of time that is required to send the aircraft across the state to try to chase fires and try to get many task book things signed off to be able to become qualified. So those two things, I again credit my work ethic. I credit my Hispanic heritage with having that never quit attitude and having that hard work and tenacity to be able to achieve both of those. Some of these pictures, the one with Isaiah, that's my 23-year-old, next to the antique fire engine. That picture was actually taken 10 years before I came to Glendale, here in Glendale, ironically enough. That is our antique engine that's sitting in the garage here just outside of my office today. I was invited to come that year and be part of the Spark of Love toy drive. And I brought I brought Isaiah. As I look at him, he looks just like Jacob does now. That's why I said his name. I brought Isaiah with me, and we were asked to help film the commercial and be part of that year's program. And then obviously just to the right of that is Isaiah and I in our gear now. As I mentioned, he's the firefighter. Some of my proudest career moments to date. And life moments, other than my personal achievements, getting married, having my 2 amazing boys. Some of my proudest achievements, the picture in the center, was when I was pinned as the fire chief here in the city of Glendale. Those were some of the past co-workers that came out to support me, many of the CAL FIRE employees that I worked with, supervised, and spent much of my life with are pictured in the center. On the left, another one of the very, very proud Hispanic moments after I became the fire chief here, I was featured on the cover of the Nicas News, which is a Nicaraguan newspaper that is shared to about 20,000 people across LA County, and a very popular newspaper and publication in Nicaragua. And then the picture on the right was actually just a couple of weeks ago at the Hispanic Heritage Parade that took place in Los Angeles. I was again asked to be a guest at that parade, and was drove around in that antique fire engine down the parade, and just was really an awesome day. It was to celebrate Hispanic heritage and the Central American bicentennial anniversary. Down on the bottom left is my badge pinning day, when my previous boss, an amazing lady and a mentor and friend, Miss Yasmin Beers, pinned my badge that day back in 2019. And then, of course, a life-impacting day for me was in 1988 when I became an American citizen. And I remember the day vividly. My parents and I and my brothers became citizens of this great country. Those are some of my proud moments. So enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about our fire department. Our Glendale Fire Department was established in 1907. We are a 114-year-old department. We are an ISO Class 1 organization, which is a very difficult tier of firefighters, of fire departments. We have 9 fire stations, 9 paramedic engine companies, 3 truck companies. I'll talk a little bit about the difference between both of those. We have 6 basic life support ambulances that serve our community. We have a Type 1 hazardous materials response team, a Type 1 urban search and rescue team. We have 1 Type 3 or brush engine, and a Type 6, which is a smaller pickup type engine that's able to maneuver the tighter roads and some of our brush areas. We have 2 water tenders, which are the big tanked water tenders that support long duration fires where there's limited or no water access, no fire hydrants. We have a state-of-the-art fire training center. We serve out of the Verdugo Fire Communications Center, which is upstairs from my office where I sit today. We serve not only the Glendale Fire Department, but 13 agencies across LA County. Our dispatchers do a tremendous job of dispatching for those 13 agencies and serve a population of about 1 million people each day. We have a unified response system, which means that the closest apparatus goes regardless of agency. So if we have a fire on the west end of Glendale, it may be only 1 Glendale engine that goes and 4 Burbank engines that go if they're closer, vice versa. If it's a fire on the east end of Burbank, we may send 5 engines or 4 engines and they send 1. So we send the closest resources. We have 271 total personnel in our organization, and that includes our sworn firefighter staff, our professional staff, our administrative staff, our fire prevention staff, our dispatchers, and I couldn't be more proud of the work that our employees do each and every day in support of our community. We're a full service fire department. We have obviously fire suppression and rescue, emergency medical service, fire prevention, public education, fire and life safety hazard elimination, state and city fire code enforcement, hazardous vegetation management program, a hazardous materials disposal and storage program at our environmental management center, a disaster preparedness planning and training, and of course the dispatch center. As part of being an all-risk organization, we talked about the 9 stations. We have over 20,000 emergency incidents. We service an area across our city of about 30 square miles. We have 4 major freeways, 3 hospitals, 24 convalescent homes, 27 high-rise buildings, wildland urban interface. We serve about 207,000 residents, and we have the train that runs through our city. And what I like to tell people is, people ask me often, how did you end up in Glendale and why Glendale? And I tell them, number one, it's a beautiful city. I truly think that the city of Glendale is beautiful, not only in its architecture and its population and its people, but it's truly the diversity of the community is something that gives me great joy, because I feel like I'm a big city chief. You know, I could be the chief of Los Angeles or the chief of Philadelphia or the chief of Chicago in a big city with many of the same challenges and many of the same opportunities and many of the same things that our small city or medium-sized city provides. So it's really a great mix of everything that you could ever want as a firefighter and certainly as a fire chief. So a lot of times we get questions, what's the difference between an engine and a truck company? As I mentioned, we have 9 engine companies. All of them are paramedic staffed. We have 4 people on each of our engines each day. They're staffed with a captain. He or she sits in the front passenger seat. The fire engineer, who drives and pumps and is responsible for all the mathematical equations that come with delivering the appropriate pressures for our water hose lines, pumping our standpipes in our buildings and our fire sprinkler systems and our aerial waterways on our ladder truck companies. 2 of our firefighters on each of our fire engine are paramedic trained. We provide full range of services, I mentioned, through our engine and truck program. The truck company is those that you see with the big ladder on the top. All 3 of ours are tiller trucks, which means they have a person in the back who steers the rear axle of the ladder truck. They're each minimum of 100-foot aerial trucks. They're also 4-person staffed with a captain, an engineer, 2 firefighters who are either EMTs or paramedics. And really soon they'll all be paramedics. We have 3 of our non-paramedic firefighters are finishing paramedic school as we speak. The remaining 4, 1 will likely promote here in the next few months, and then the other 3 will be going to paramedic school next year, which will mean that all of our firefighters in our department will be paramedic trained, which we will at that point convert all of our truck companies to paramedic staffing. Our truck companies are a specialized resource. They carry every tool you can imagine and need for extrication of victims from vehicles, from confined spaces, from collapsed buildings, anything that you could think of, our truck companies have. They're essentially a giant rolling toolbox. All of our truck companies' personnel are USAR trained, and they provide many, the picture in the lower right, probably the most important job that our truck companies do on the scene of our residential or home fires, actually the picture on the bottom and the top, is called vertical ventilation. As firefighters, when we come to a building, our number 1 task is to save anybody who's trapped. And in order to do that, we've got to exhaust all of the smoke, heat, and gases from that structure. The best and most effective way to do that is to cut holes on the roof and get that heat rises, smoke rises, so we get that the hot gases and smoke to exit those holes that we cut on the roof, therefore making it more tenable for our firefighters to be able to find victims and to find the seat of the fire and be able to knock it down. We do an absolute tremendous job of jumping on our fires very quickly. We are a very aggressive fire department. Our firefighters do a really, really good job of containing fires quickly and limiting damage and saving people and lives. Our special operations, our urban search and rescue team, as I mentioned, we have a type 1 urban search and rescue team. I spent 15 years on a team very similar to this one. We have a hazardous materials team and a weapons of mass destruction response team. These are type 1, which is the highest qualification you could have in those disciplines. As you can see in those pictures, the left picture is of a rail tank with hazardous materials being inspected by firefighters. The picture on the bottom right is what we call a trench collapse, where a worker was trapped by a collapse in that trench, and we were working to free him. Our emergency medical services, I won't read the mission. I don't want to bore all of you with those details. 80% of our work is medical in nature. We in our community have taken a very, very strong and aggressive posture in improving our CPR. Our dispatchers are all EMD trained, emergency medical dispatch trained, so they provide pre-arrival instructions. If you called 911 right now and said that your family member or a bystander that you were by is not breathing and pulseless, therefore CPR needs to be initiated, they would guide you through those CPR instructions until we arrive. We've worked hard in our community and in partnership with our GUSD, thanks to our superintendent and her staff. We continue to provide training to our high school students. Our goal is to train every high school senior before they graduate in CPR. So we're currently in the process of doing that this year with the high school seniors. And really we've expanded. We have 107 automatic external defibrillators throughout our community. And I'll take this opportunity to plug an app. If you've never heard of the application on your phone, both available on iOS and on Android, is an application called Pulse Point. That's pulse, like a pulse, like your heart pulse, point, one word. If you download that application, you could follow our fire department, both for emergencies, when we get fires, and more importantly, if you are CPR trained, the app will notify you when there's a need for CPR in a public setting. And if you're the closest person, you can respond and assist us with starting CPR before we arrive. So we really like to get as many people as possible to download the app and help us with our CPR efforts. Our ambulance program, this is again something that's unique in most fire departments. Our ambulances are not staffed by firefighters. They're staffed by EMTs that are not, they're non-sworn EMTs. Many of them come from our local high schools, our local programs. It is a stepping stone into becoming a firefighter. So as I mentioned with the Fire Explorer program, what I'm trying to do is further reach that local talent here in our community. Start you off as a fire explorer, then you would transition to an ambulance operator, and then eventually become a firefighter paramedic for us in our organization. We staff 6 ambulances throughout our city. They do a fantastic job. You'll see them, they wear the light blue shirts, our firefighters wear the dark blue shirts, and chief officers wear black shirts and uniforms. Our training section is one of our most important sections. They're responsible for all of our recruit academies. They're responsible for all of our continuing education training, for all when there's a new procedure or a new process that comes out in the fire setting. These individuals are responsible for making sure that we are up to date on all of those things. Mr. Benitez, how am I doing on time? I got 45 minutes. Am I close to being where I need to be?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay.
We'd like to give about 10 to 15 minutes for questions. So
okay, perfect.
You're doing great.
Perfect. All right. Our fire prevention section, I don't want to leave these people out. These are important parts of our job. Our Fire Prevention Bureau works hard in preventing losses by both inspections of our vegetation and our residential and commercial inspections. They do plan checks. If you're going to open a new business, our fire prevention plan check folks are responsible for ensuring that you meet all the codes and that you've made your business safe for your employees and for the public. And we also have hazardous waste inspections. So that's a little bit about our department. I will take this opportunity again on social media. If you don't follow us, please do so. Our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook handle is @GlendaleFireCA. If you have not followed us, please do. I'm going to briefly, I got one more slide and we will open it up to questions and answers. My job as the fire chief is to be a leader, in the community and to be a leader to this organization. I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And every single day that I come to work, I know the tremendous duty and responsibility that I have by putting people into harm's way. My job is really to put people into harm's way. Throughout the COVID pandemic, our firefighters, our ambulance operators came to work every single day. There was no remote work for firefighters and paramedics and dispatchers. And I knew that I was sending them in to people's homes who were sick, who were virus positive, and were exposing our people. No different than when we're going into a burning building or going on the side of a hill. And as I mentioned on my first slide, I've unfortunately been on duty for 4 line of duty deaths. and it's something that I take very, very seriously. I believe that a leader is someone who believes in you and gets you to believe in yourself. And for all the young people out there, I really think it starts with believing in yourself. The picture again of me and the little boy, that's again my 23-year-old now. I was a captain. That's probably 2005 or so when that picture was taken. And, you know, today he's a firefighter. I believed in him, he believed in himself, and that is where we are. The other pictures are of some community folks and events. That is a big part of my job. People often ask me, what is your job as the chief? I provide operational daily support to the folks that are doing the job, whether in dispatch or on the fire trucks or on ambulances or in private prevention. I'm responsible for hiring, disciplining. You know, we don't really fire people that much in this organization because we're filled with outstanding people, but community engagement, being involved in the community. As was mentioned in my bio, I'm a member of several boards and commissions, and I'm proud to be in this community. I'm proud to represent this organization. I'm proud to be Hispanic and do so. I'm also responsible for strategic planning and looking forward. What's forward in our community and in our department. I attend city meetings and events, and as was mentioned, I'm also the Area C coordinator. It has been my absolute honor to present to this group today. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. I thank you. I thank Sydney Esquivel for the outstanding introduction. I thank Mr. Galmore very much for all of the communications, Ms. Benitez, Glendale Library, GUSD, Dr. Vivian Etchian, thank you so much for having me. And if you'd like to follow me, my Instagram and Twitter is at FC_GFD_1075. And with that, I will stop sharing and open up to questions.
Thank you, Chief. And I just wanted, before Sydney asks the questions, so Sydney, you can turn your video on if you'd like. I just wanted to connect for those viewers out there. This is the teacher in me, but this is our second presenter who has talked about saying yes, volunteering. You know, whenever a question is out there, raising your hand. David Heredia, our second speaker, the author, that's how he said he has led his life. He just says, yes, I'm going to do it. I'll volunteer. I'm the first guy with my hand raised. And that's what Chief Lanzas told us tonight too. So that's two people now. I think it's really good advice. So I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to also thank you for your service, sir. Your job is so important in our community. And I appreciate everything you do. And I know it's not an easy one. So thank you for that. Sydney, you are on. Go ahead.
For our first question, who is your biggest inspiration?
My biggest inspiration. I think I would have to say my two boys. You know, I think my two boys are truly they're just great young men. Both of them in their own way. You know, they're far apart, right? And many people ask me, are they from the same mom? Yes, they're from the same mom. But one's 23 and one's 11, and I draw inspiration from them because they're really great young people who I must credit their mom. Their mom, Kara, my wife, is an absolute amazing mother and a great role model to them, and is really every day I do everything that I do, and I work as hard as I do for them, and I think they are my biggest inspiration.
Okay. Since you've held every position in the CAL FIRE system, was there a job that you particularly enjoyed the most?
Oh, that's a good question, right? That's a trick question because I'll be honest. I love being the chief and I love what I get to do, but truly the best job in the fire service is a captain. A fire captain, you run a crew, so you're in charge of an engine or a truck or a specialty if you're on a specialty assignment. And you really control the day each and every day. You build such good bonds with your crew. When I was a captain, my engineer and my firefighter are still to this day very, very dear friends of mine. In fact, the firefighter that was my firefighter there in CAL FIRE when I was a captain, I happened to have brought him here with me to Glendale. So he now works here in Glendale. He's an engineer now. So I would have to be honest and say that the captain's role and the captain's job is the best.
What do you think your biggest contribution to society is?
I think in my role as the chief, my biggest contribution is putting the best employees in positions to deliver our service. I know that may sound cliche, but truly our people are out every single day making a difference in people's lives. People call 911 on their worst day during their worst hour. And I think putting people that have a humble servant's heart in the forefront of what they do, and knowing that we put service above self, that we help people before our own needs, is truly my biggest duty and my most important.
You seem like you've wanted to be a firefighter all of your life. Have you ever considered any other career?
Absolutely not. Nothing else. I didn't touch on it, but I wrestled in high school a little bit, and I probably wasn't good enough for a scholarship. I played baseball also throughout high school. Maybe could have gone to a junior college and played baseball, but I wanted to be a firefighter. That's all I ever wanted to be. I think at the end of the day, when I retire and I'm done, all I want is people to say, I don't want people to like me. I don't want people to say he was a great chief. I want people to say he was a good firefighter. That's the ultimate compliment to any firefighter and any chief.
What training do you need to become a firefighter?
Good question. So in today's fire service, when I started, you didn't need to be a paramedic. You needed to be an EMT. You needed to have a fire academy. Today, most fire departments are only hiring paramedics. There's some exceptions, but for the most part, here in Glendale, which is where I want all of our Glendale students to come, you have to be a paramedic. So the training is, first you have to go to EMT school, which is a semester long at a community college. They offer paramedic schools all over. And then you have to serve as an EMT for a minimum of 6 months, and then you could apply to paramedic school, which is about a year long. And then most departments want you to have a fire academy, which again, Glendale Community College offers the Verdugo Fire Academy, which we partner with. The Glendale Community College, the Verdugo Academy students train at our training center. We have many of our firefighters teach them. So to answer your question, you have to be an EMT, you have to be a paramedic, and for the most part, you have to have an academy. We don't require everybody to have the academy because we teach our own, but for the most part, those are the 3 things that you need. You could accomplish all of them in about 2.5 years after high school.
What is your favorite part of working as a fire chief?
I think my favorite part is seeing, a lot of what I do is administrative. I may have to find budget money to do something. The Explore program is a prime example, right? I've been working on that because of COVID, I've been working on it for about 2 years. And I'm finally to the point now where we're ready. We've got the budget money, we have the people ready to do it, and we're going to implement it in January. And I think when you see something that you work hard on in the background come to fruition, or you get to promoting the hard work of your employees, getting to celebrate their successes through our award ceremonies, are all highlights of my job as a fire chief, and really the highlights, as well as spending time in the community. I love interacting in our community. I love being at events, and being asked to do this sort of thing is really a humbling and great part of my job.
How did you know for sure you wanted to become a firefighter? What drew you in the most?
I think a couple things. Number one, you help people, and I've always wanted to give back. Right? I came from Nicaragua, from a very, very poor country. My family came here for the American dream, and I, every single day that I put this uniform on and I put this badge on, I feel I'm fulfilling that American dream. I am the American dream, and I think that every day I am blessed, thankful, and honored to be in the position that I'm in, and I feel like I could be a role model to others, right? Others that may think I can never get into being a firefighter, I can never make it to chief. One day I'm going to retire, and it's going to be somebody else, maybe a fire explorer that started here, that gets to be the chief someday in Glendale.
When you were in the station, what was your go-to dish to cook?
Ooh, I didn't cook. I was terrible. I was terrible at cooking. I tell people all the time, I promoted because I wasn't a good cook. No, honestly, I remember when I was a very young firefighter, I would call my mom, when my mom was still alive. I would call my mom and ask her, because she was a tremendous cook. And I would ask her for suggestions on what I should make. And she'd try to get me to make these extravagant dishes that I could never pull off. So I would have to say barbecue was my go-to. You know, a barbecued steak or a barbecued tri-tip was probably my go-to, but I was not a good cook. We have some amazing cooks in the fire department. I was not one.
Did you ever think you'd become the fire chief when you started?
When I started, no. But as I moved on and started reaching ranks, probably when I made captain, I had aspirations of being a chief. And I came to Glendale with the aspirations of one day being the chief here. I came here as the deputy chief, and I had my sights set on being the chief here. This was the size department that I wanted. An important thing that I wanted to be able to do was know every employee's name and know their wives' names and their kids' names. I can do that here with 271 people. I know every employee's name, I know their wives' names, and I know most of the kids' names. It's hard to remember them all. In some of the bigger departments, you know, I came from a 100-station fire department in the CAL FIRE system in Riverside, where we had 1,500 employees. There was no way I could know everybody. So that probably, I don't know if I answered the question, but that was truly why I was here, why I came here.
If you couldn't become a firefighter, what would you be?
Today, I'd try to be a professional golfer. I didn't golf back then, but now that's probably my biggest hobby, and I think that would be a pretty good second career.
Sydney, we only have a minute left. You got to ask the roof question. That's my favorite question, I think.
Okay, so how do you cut holes in the top of the roofs?
Great question. So I wish I could go back to some of those pictures. Basically, we throw ladders. We either throw ground ladders or we throw the aerial ladder from the top of our ladder trucks. We scurry up to buildings, and we carry axes on our belts in case the chainsaw doesn't work. But we use chainsaws to basically cut the holes in the roof, and we cut the hole dependent on the size of the roof and the size of the fire. You want the fire to exhaust itself, the smoke, heat, and gas to exhaust itself through that hole. So once we cut the hole, then we use a tool called a rubbish hook, and we push through the drywall to get all of that heat and smoke out through that hole in the roof. Great questions.
That's awesome. I'm laughing at that because, as I shared with you guys, my dad was a fireman, and we lived in a little 2-story house, and I had a small room, and he, you know, during fire prevention week, I'd come home and say, you know, Dad, they talked to me about, you know, do we have a ladder at home? Do we, you know, the ladder for the window? And he would say, no, I don't need a ladder. And I'd say, what? And he'd look at the wall in my bedroom, and he'd say, because I'm coming through that wall. I was like, okay, great. You know, but firemen know, you guys know enough. You guys know so much about structure and construction, and because you have to know where to go through. So, you know, he always made me laugh like that. But Thank you, Sydney. It looks like Dr. Ekchian wants to say some parting words, so I'm going to let her speak. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chief Lanzas. Thank you, Ms. Benitez, and our interpreter and everyone that has joined us today. What an incredible journey, there are so many ways in which we learn from your aspirational goals and your determination, and your fabulous role model for all of our students. So thank you for joining us. And I've had the privilege of Chief Lanzas joining us when the students returned for hybrid, when the students returned for summer camp. So he truly walks the talk. It's just not pretending to be nice or pretending to care. Every step I've seen him take in the 2.5 years I've known him speaks to the fabulous human being that he is. And that matters the most in our community. And of course, incredibly competent as such. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ekchian.
And Chief, I was going to ask you, do you still speak to the firemen who got you into the Explorers, the Revis? I mean, have you?
Yes, I do. I do still talk to Rolando. He's no longer in the fire department. He retired, but yes, I do still talk to Rolando every once in a while. And there were several others that were key to my being where I am most, that came from that station. But Rolando was the first firefighter that I met. Rolando Rivas, first firefighter that I met, and first firefighter said, "Come on over and help me wash this truck."
That's awesome. You never know. You never know that you might be helping, inspire the next chief of fire or the next president of the United States, so that's an amazing part of your story. I really appreciated that.
Miss Benitez, I know we're out of time. Can I take 30 more seconds? There's 10 things that I'd like to share with the group that I think are important, that are what I call the 10 commandments of leadership. But really they're 10 commandments of being a good human being. And if you take these, you can do them in anything that you do. And they are: always do what's right. Be kind, be humble, and care. People don't care how much you know, they care how much you care. Be brave. I often say fortune favors the brave. Be you. Be authentic, genuine, and don't be afraid of who you are. Put yourself behind your people and put your people first. Be thankful even when it's hard to be. Treat everyone fair, firm, and consistent, even those who oppose you and don't like you. Trust your people. Focus on opportunities, not challenges. And do not leave anyone behind. And never forget to send the elevator of success back down to bring up the next generation of leaders.
I love it. And as I'll take off my chairperson hat and put on my principal hat, I would love to work with, and I'm sure the other principals of the high schools would too, on the Explorers program. I know we have kids in our schools that would love to be firemen, fire people.
Firefighters.
Firefighters, thank you. I knew that was right. No, but I'm really looking forward to that. That would be amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time tonight, sir. Thank you, Dr. Etchian. Thank you to our interpreter. Thank you, Sydney. And we will see you all next Monday.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Adios.
Adios.